Most people don't know how to read the patterns of the market. And this is one big reason the public is typically on the losing end when markets go south. And since everyone wants to know when things are going to happen, these patterns can help you understand where we are in the trend cycle and therefore what is the next most likely outcome so that you can get into position to benefit from it. Today, I'm going to show you that the last pillar of support for the economy has technically broken a critical level of support. And I'm sorry, I'm getting chills. But while spot gold is still looking for its next level of resistance on the top, the world seeks safety in physical gold. These patterns and more tell us of an impending crisis. And this knowledge enables you to get into the best possible position to accomplish your goals. That's why your goals come first and foremost in our sound money strategy. Now remember, what creates and supports the dollar is the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. In other words, as long as you trust them, you have faith, you will continue to work for and accept as payment U.S. dollars, which are created from government debt and borrowed into existence. That is why governments and central banks track sentiment, expectations, and confidence, because it's a con game. And what we're watching and experiencing right now is that confidence on a global basis is eroding quickly now. And if public confidence, which is the last pillar, is the only thing holding the system together, don't you want to know when that confidence is gone before it's too late? Because once that confidence is gone, it's almost impossible to get back. Look at Zimbabwe. But you need to understand what's truly happening, because it's the only way for you to make educated choices that put your best interest first. So let me walk you through this. For those unable to watch right now, you can set up a time convenient to you and your strategy specialist. They'll be happy to walk you through it, or anybody else that just wants to dig into this more deeply, because I know this graph is complicated. But this is the Federal Reserve Education Department, or the FRED chart on the University of Michigan consumer sentiment, or how people are feeling about the future and how comfortable they might feel about spending money. We've talked about this before and recently because it's been breaking down. But since 3/4 of the economy is consumer spending, I think this is a pretty important future indicator. And what's it doing? Look, it's plunging. But it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that, because it shows a major pattern shift in consumer sentiment and a breakdown in confidence that could spell the end of this game. Between 2015 and 2020, consumer sentiment moved up and down in a reasonably narrow range, and that was shattered during COVID-19 crisis. That was Black Swan event that changed everything on a social and economic level as that K-shaped recovery. You remember that? But what that really did was it exacerbated income and wealth inequality thanks to that flood of new debt QE money. Whoop-de-doo! But this tsunami of new money pushed most markets to extremely overvalued levels. Woohoo! Happy days are here again. Just like in the 1920s, just like in the greedy 80s. But at the same time, for the public, the stimulus made payment deferrals, and they were given a little bit. Anybody that made less than $150,000 a year was given a little bit of money, and it enabled them to save, speculate in the markets because, hey, they were locked down, had nothing else to do, and also to pay down debt. So any hopes that the public had, which you can see peaked in 2021, Well, they're now gone, and then some. But you can see that consumer sentiment bounced from the first big plunge of 2020, peaking in 2021, and with that next lower peak in 2024 and early in 2025. In other words, since 2019, consumer sentiment has created a series of lower and lower highs. At the same time, after bottoming in 2022, the lows in sentiment created a series of higher and higher lows. What that does is it formed like a wedge. I don't know. Here you go. A wedge, kind of like a wedge of cheese. But recently, and very importantly, consumer sentiment has now broken a key level of confidence support on the downside. This, frankly, please take my word on this, this breakdown could easily spell an imminent crisis, just like the spiking of spot gold prices indicates a problem with global confidence in the US dollar, right? So these are all indicators of that loss of confidence on a global level. That was the black swan event that changed everything on a social, economic, as well as a financial level in that K-shaped recovery. It benefited the few to the detriment of the many. So what was happening back in 1981? How about being in the middle of the transition from at least a quasi-gold standard to a full debt-based standard and the start of the greedy 80s, which parallels the roaring 20s. And I bring this up because history repeats itself. And so therefore, these are some of the patterns that we see to get us used to this transition. But you need that bridge to get over that. We are in full social, economic, and financial system reset, and it should be obvious to everybody. But the truth is that when one monetary system dies, another one pops up to take its place. Physical gold, physical silver in your possession is the most secure bridge to get you from one system into the other with, guess what? Your purchasing power intact and frankly even expanded, because remember, physical gold and physical silver suppression in the system is what? A rising gold price indicates a failing currency. Can you see that now? Because in 2002, a $1 move in spot gold was considered huge. That's when I first transitioned into the gold markets, because I knew that the technicals were telling me that we were at the end of this currency's life cycle. And then today, well, I knew that it would be there. And it's funny because I was just listening to actually not that long ago video that I did where I said, I know that 3,000 sounds outrageous. How about 40,000 on the true value of an ounce of gold? Today, spot gold closed up $58.16, and I've seen moves up to $100. I knew this day was coming, and now it is finally here. But really, what does that mean to you? Well, remember we talked about that quadruple top? There it is, where spot gold would go to a top price and then pull back. Well, that's a very powerful pattern that warned us back then that any move above that level was going to be big, because it happened 4 times. We can go back and look at those videos where I talked about that. But particularly, quite honestly, quadruple tops are extraordinarily rare. So it's not surprising that this move has been as big as it is, because it's kind of like, you know, when you push down on a spring and you push there and you hold it down, When you release your hand, the price shoots in a direction. In terms of the consumer sentiment, it broke below, so it's shooting down. But in terms of spot gold, because it broke a top resistance level, it's shooting up. I got to be honest, these patterns are way smarter than we are, certainly than I am. They can guide you to the next most likely outcome. And now, with consumer sentiment plunging and inflation expectations spiking, what are they telling you? They're telling you and the world that there is no safety in dollars in this crap in government debt, that confidence is going away and eroding rapidly. They're telling you to get to the safety of gold. And that's why you see the prices being uncontrollable in terms of the Treasury and the central bank. They can't stop these prices anymore. So I just showed you that the last support, that public confidence, is beginning to collapse. My concern, and when I always told you that I would be going to my bug out property, is when the public loses confidence, and here's the key, panics. I can't tell you the exact moment that will happen, but I can tell you that a critical support and consumers' willingness and ability to take on more debt has now been broken. It's over. What will you do about it? If you don't have a plan, that is a plan to fail. The foundation of the plan needs to be, it has to be, in sound money. So you have that bridge to get you safely from this system into the next. But please, please find a community near you. Go to a community garden, volunteer, meet people, go to a farmer's market, get to know those who provide your food, because food is the single biggest issue that most people face. And I think you can see that now as that unfolds. Give these guys a day of your time. Create that relationship and that local community with everyone sharing what they have to contribute, whether it's gold and silver or food or laying irrigation, for goodness sakes. If you don't have any skills, I mean, everybody's got skill sets. Look, everybody's got value that they can bring to the community. We need to come together to get through this, period. And what I showed you today is a big, big, big warning. But it's not the first big warning. It's another big warning. How many do you need? If you help yourself, you'll be able to help others. But we must do this globally as well. We need to grow our voice. And we can do that by coming together and holding the only financial asset that runs zero counterparty risk. That's what makes gold valuable. That's what puts it above all governments, all central banks. The complete collapse of confidence always ushers in hyperinflation. That's a guarantee. Now, I believe that we've already seen the technicals of that beginning. It's just not obvious to the public yet. But the window of opportunity is still open to build your sound money strategy, as well as food, water, energy, security, that barter ability, that wealth preservation, community, and shelter. I urge you to make an appointment with our strategy specialists to set up your own sound money strategy. But remember to build your local community and participate in the global sound money movement. And all you have to do is position into physical gold and silver. You hold it, you own it, you have security in all of those things that we need, food, water, energy, etc., to lead and have a reasonable standard of living. I hope that those that have followed my work over the years, I hope you can see that I always strive to get better at translating financial noise into understandable language. I hope you think we're getting better at it. I'd like some feedback if you could give it to us. Have you noticed the change? And would you share what you think? Because we constantly want to try and get better to help you understand and see what's truly happening so that you can make educated choices independent of what anybody says that puts your best interest first. Because 100% I know that we together can make a positive difference, maybe even for the world. I know that sounds so lofty. I know it sounds crazy to me too. And yet I also know that this is why I was put on the planet and why we've all come together. Together we can do this. One person can't, but together we can. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye. And because consumer confidence as well as consumer sentiment are so critically important, make sure you watch the video that I did last week on that consumer confidence piece and what the impact that the tariffs are having on everybody, the world. This is critically important for you to understand.